Bueno, little housekeeping to do. Hello, everybody. This is Mariana Echeverry, and you are watching or listening to Autorregulate. Or auto-regulate, whatever you want to go with. Now, there's a little bit of housekeeping that I have to do. The content of this interview and the content of the whole video is going to be in English, but there's a little introduction we are going to record, and there's a lot of yapping in Spanish. If you don't want to listen to us yapping in Spanish, you can just skip this part and go directly to the interview. If you want to hear yapping in Spanish, then you're welcome to stay and enjoy, if that's your kick, whatever. Hola, mami. Buenos días.
Hola.
Bueno, el día de hoy, yo digo mucho el día de hoy, ¿sí o qué? Bueno, hoy.
¿Para qué te digo que no?
Yo sé, no, tengo un problema con las muletillas, pero así es como he decidido andar este camino, así que let's reboot. Bueno, el día de hoy, queridos oyentes y querida audiencia,
Gente desocupada.
Gente desocupada. Bienvenidos a este video podcast lleno de alcurnia y con una audiencia desmesurada. El día de hoy les traemos un tema interesante. Bueno, para mí este tema es interesante, es terrorífico, pero también interesante. Y para hablar de ese tema, bueno, pues tenemos un experto más adelante. Pero antes quiero hablar con una de mis personas favoritas en el mundo jamás.
No.
Mi prima Muffy. Hola, mami.
Ya llegué.
Ya llegaste.
Llegué a visitarte.
Sí. Y hoy vamos a hablar de este tema porque las dos de alguna manera, es un tema que nos ha tocado a las dos porque tenemos historia de esta cuestión en la familia. Y es el Alzheimer's. Hola.
Tengo una pregunta.
Dímela.
¿De dónde viene esa palabra? Y es Alzheimer, ¿cómo se dice? ¿Son varios?
Buena pregunta. Es que Alzheimer es el nombre del doctor que descubrió ese trastorno como en los 20. No sé si fue en los 20, pero fue hace mucho tiempo. El man era alemán, creo. Entonces, en inglés, y para la gente que es wannabe, como yo, se dice, en vez de decir Alzheimer's disease, se dice simplemente Alzheimer's, con una apóstrofe.
O sea, cuando tú le estás diciendo con apóstrofe es en inglés.
Sí, porque ese es el posesivo, y yo soy wannabe.
¿Y en español?
Entonces, si fuera en español sería la enfermedad de Alzheimer.
Alzheimer.
Sí. Según aprendí muy recientemente, es una clase de demencia, porque hay varias clases de demencia que están relacionadas o no están relacionadas con la edad. El Alzheimer es una de esas. Y
el que comúnmente lo que le llamaban antes demencia senil, el de los viejitos. Ahora,
no, es que creo que es otra.
No, creo que es esa.
¿Ah, sí? Ay, puta, yo tengo una confusión ahí.
Bueno, pregunta eso también.
Bueno,
Salgamos de duda.
Yo tengo esa, porque yo antes pensaba que era que Alzheimer era en inglés y en español era demencia senil.
No.
Pero es que parece que hay varias clases de demencias, pero voy a preguntar eso también. Bueno, pero ya no hablemos de lo que no sabemos, hablemos de lo que más o menos sabemos que está, digamos que es mainstream con respecto al Alzheimer. ¿Tú qué sabes con respecto a esa enfermedad?
Sé que se empieza a deteriorar el cerebro, que como que con la edad como que se reduce, se empieza yo me lo imagino como si tuviera termitas, se lo empieza a comer así, en plan además neuronal, y empieza a hacer desconectar recuerdos y memorias, ataca como un montón el tema más grande que uno dice le dio es que empieza a perder la memoria, los recuerdos y demás. Yo sé, o pues lo que tengo entendido es que va como de adelante para atrás. Entonces, los últimos recuerdos que pierde son los más viejos,
sí.
Que me parece súper interesante porque uno dice, a mí ya se me olvidaron los de antes, o incluso unos recuerdos selectivos, que también está muy interesante pensar qué es lo que tú guardas en la memoria como para que no se te olvide y los que están como por ahí de, se me pasó.
Porque te acuerdas que con abuelita empezaba a hablar de los hijos de ella cuando estaban jóvenes, cuando estaban chiquitos, ¿te acuerdas?
Pues claro, porque vivía con mi tía y con mi prima y a ellos, o sea, yo llegó a un nivel en que incluso mi abuelita empezó a estar al nivel de colegio de ella, que se
Sí.
peleaban por los cuadernos y demás. Y eso
Mm.
que ni a ti ni a mí nos tocó en primera
Primer
instancia
plano.
porque ellos eran los que
Mm,
vivían con ella y pues eran los que les tocaba
mm.
cuidarla.
Sí, eso es un cama. A mí me parece, o sea, hay pocas cosas que me parezcan más terroríficas que eso.
¿Qué?
Que o sea, el olvido de alguien que tú quieres, ¿sí me entiendes? Como que ya no te reconozca. Ahora, para la persona que está enferma,
Claro.
pues es un video, obviamente. Y al principio, cuando se empiezan a dar cuenta que se les están olvidando las cosas, es súper angustiante. Pero ya llega un punto en el que ya como que ya gone. Pero entonces el conflicto va para la gente que está, para los que lo cuidan, para que, o sea, darte cuenta que tu mamá no te reconoce, coño, que tu abuelita no te reconoce, que no.
Pues de hecho, creo que esta y muchas otras enfermedades que no son físicas, que uno no reconoce como un
Mm,
dolor, un algo, que es muy difícil como socializarla, nunca se tiene en cuenta que la enfermedad se compone de dos personas, el enfermo y el cuidador. Y
el
ambos
cuidado.
necesitan tratamiento y ambos necesitan guía y ambos necesitan, porque el cuidador, claro, es el que está ahí y le consume mucho, casi mucho más que al otro. Mientras este
Claro.
se está dando cuenta que va perdiendo, este se va dando cuenta que está consciente todo el tiempo de estar ahí.
Y
Entonces,
el cuidador tiene que
¿a
comer
quién lo
mucha
cuida?
mierda.
Toda.
Toda. Y no solamente en enfermedades que son mentales, o sea, las enfermedades que requieren que una persona de la familia se ocupe de ti. En cualquier sentido, hay una relación muy extraña entre la persona que cuida y la persona que está enferma. Porque digamos, en una enfermedad mental, pues, de repente no hay tanta conciencia de cómo estoy tratando yo a las personas que me están cuidando. Pero yo me he dado cuenta, yo me he dado cuenta con enfermos de otras cosas que no son mentales, la relación que tienen con las personas que los cuidan es súper conflictivo. Es súper conflictivo. Yo creo que lo mejor que uno podría hacer es
Pausa
tratar de.
dramática.
Sí, pausa dramática. Es que estoy tratando de encontrar una frase que no me haga quedar como una malparida. Hacer lo posible por, o sea, hacer lo posible en el presente para asegurarnos de tener un futuro independiente. ¿Sí me entiendes?
Pero independiente, ¿cómo? Porque
Por ejemplo, la limpiada del culo. O sea, para mí es
el
vital
inodoro
poderme limpiar
japonés,
mi propio culo.
claro, el inodoro japonés.
Bueno, pues, en caso de que estés completamente impedido, consíguete un inodoro japonés.
Pues no, porque no necesita estar tan impedido para necesitar una ayuda muy básica. Lo
Es
que
que yo
necesitas
no
es
sé, yo
tener
nunca he
mucha
estado en
plata.
Japón, yo nunca he sentido la experiencia de la lavada de
Es
culín.
divino, es
Ay,
una
¿cómo es
cosa
eso?
deliciosa.
Pero es que yo tengo muchas dudas con respecto a eso. Si tú estás sentado acabando de cagar, hay, qué pena, too much information, pero hay diferentes formas de cagar y hay diferentes consistencias de cagada. Yo pensaría que para la más normal y la más saludable, un inodoro de esos sería perfecto. Pero ¿qué pasa si está sticky? ¿Qué pasa si está fluid? ¿Qué pasa si la consistencia cambia? ¿Es realmente suficiente?
Pero es un chorrito a presión, pues yo creo
Pero
que
qué
es
tanta
suficiente.
presión, virgen.
No,
Pero ¿tienes jabón?
chévere. Ah.
¿Chévere? ¿Es calientito?
Además está, sí, no es, además porque encima de todo tiene para niño y para niña, entonces tiene más de un chorro, entonces va
What?
en diferentes direcciones. ¡Ay, es
Get the
maravilloso!
fuck out.
Sí. Ahora, pues claro, como se costea en nuestros países, un inodoro de esos,
No
pues
me
no.
importa. Quiero. Eso va a ser mi prioridad número uno ever.
Claro, es
Ay,
chévere.
tiene chorrito.
Claro, no, no
Pero,
tiene jabón, pero lo que necesitas en primera instancia es quitar
Pero
cosas.
después cuando tú te secas, igual tienes que hacer el mismo motion de secarte el culo.
Sí.
Entonces,
Bueno,
obviamente,
pero ahí también, pues, claro, yo no, yo no lo hice, pero pues una cosa es cuando te bañas te tienes que secar, ¿no?
pero es que ahí va mi punto, es que hay muchas personas, y eso me pasó en algún momento cuando la espalda me sacó la mano. Hay muchas personas que por lesiones en la espalda no pueden hacer el motion de limpiárselas. Ese es mi punto. Mi punto es
Pero
que vas
entonces ahí
a,
te toca robotizar toda una vivienda. Que
pues obviamente, ¿qué presupuesto aguanta eso?
no.
O necesitar asistencia de alguien más a que te ayude con esas cosas tan básicas y tan privadas. A mí me parece eso un pesadillesco. O sea, yo
¿Y tú
cuando tuve,
preferirías que fuera alguien muy conocido o alguien muy ajeno? ¿Mm?
pues tuve both y fue incómodo en ambas instancias, pero me pareció mejor.
Ujú.
Me pareció mejor cuando lo hizo una enfermera, a pesar de que no lo hizo con tanto cariño.
Pero es que este cariño también se transforma justamente porque el cuidador nunca sabe qué está
estoy
haciendo.
haciendo esto
Exacto.
gratis. Te
No,
estoy
pero
haciendo un favor.
además de eso, pero mira que ahí también viene un montón de problemas en el momento del ego y de ese orgullo propio y como de perder tu
Mm,
autonomía es un golpe durísimo para
es
el
un
ego, la
golpe muy duro.
autoestima, que o te rindes a ese sentimiento o no puede cuidarte alguien muy cercano, porque si no lo vas a matar. Y justamente por eso, que es mejor alguien muy cercano que tú puedes decir, lo hace con amorcito, pero en realidad cuánto es amorcito y cuánto es, no tengo ni idea qué estoy haciendo y me da pavor irle a romper algo, yo no quiero, Dios
No le quiero
mío,
romper la
virgen,
nieve.
porque nadie le enseña a un cuidador ser cuidador, uno dice, yo estoy aquí para las que
Claro.
sea, necesito todo, ah, mierda, sí,
Sí, no, eso es un camello. Pero también hay que tener en cuenta que no todo el mundo tiene acceso a alguien más que venga a hacer las cuestiones. Entonces, en muchos casos el default cuidador va a ser la persona que más cerca vive a esa persona. Y eso, o
totalmente.
sea, si uno puede hacer cualquier cosa que se necesite hacer para asegurar autonomía, cuando uno llega a ese punto, hay que hacerlo, coño.
Pero claro,
Sobre todo
yo
con
creo
esas
que un
cosas que
balance
son
entre las dos cosas,
tan
que
privadas y como tan
pero que
complejas
haya
para
tanto
uno.
información para el cuidador y que haya un truco para la persona enferma que tenga un poquito más de autonomía, pero el 100% no lo va a lograr.
No.
Ahora, todo ese tema de llegar a ese punto y estar preparado, también está el tema de, porque puedo hacer algo que llegue a la vejez y no me dé, o, ¿sabes? Ok, si a mí me dicen de 30 o si me dicen de 70 hubiera empezado a los 30 a tal cosa, y yo digo, yo le hago, no sé qué, pero yo le hago. Si tú me dices que de pronto
Exactamente.
puedo hacer algo que llegue allá mejor, no solo el cuidarme, sino que no me dé, pues dígame que yo voy a intentarlo al menos.
Pero eso es una mentalidad que tienes tú y que tengo yo porque soy así. Pero no la tiene todo el mundo. O porque simplemente no es información a la que o sea, a uno no le da miedo algo que no está ahí. Y cuando tú tienes 20, 30 años, tú te sientes tan inmortal y tan absolutamente, a mí no me va a pasar absolutamente nada, tan invulnerable, que realmente eso es una no solución a un no problema, porque no está ni siquiera ahí. Lo que pasa es que tú y
Tin,
yo lo hemos
tin.
visto.
Hagamos algo.
Ahora, volviendo al tema del Alzheimer, hay algunas cosas que en mainstream, pero no sé si son ciertas o no, que hablan de formas para prevenirlo o que hacen que ciertas personas tengan menos tendencia de agarrarlo. ¿Tú sabes algunos de esos trucos?
Uf, mm, como juegos mentales, como
Como
estar entrenando todo
sudokus.
el tiempo la memoria, como hacer el cubo Rubik, o yo qué sé, como
¿Tú alguna vez has podido hacer
puzzles.
eso?
No, pero me
No,
encanta jugar. A mí me encanta que esté armado y hacerle un, un cambio de color a todos. Es par y par. Ese me lo sé de memoria, pero,
pero
pero
es
bueno,
que,
todo eso es un truco matemático también que no me he mentido a
exacto,
aprender.
yo,
Pero he
o sea,
escuchado por
sí,
el lado de entrenar, si fuera el cerebro un músculo en el que llevo al gimnasio, es hacer un
mm,
montón de eso, no dejar lectura o cosas así. Lo hago más
aprender
porque
otros
me
idiomas.
gusta, aprender otros idiomas. Luego entonces empieza uno a escuchar de la gente que fuma marihuana tiende a entonces generar toda esa pérdida de memoria, pero después que no, que la marihuana soluciona, no sé, uno escucha
Ahora,
todo para
no,
ambos lados.
eso sí tiene evidencia, ahí sí hay evidencia de
¿Cuál?
que la marihuana, no sé si son todos los compuestos de la marihuana o algunos solamente, me parece que son todos al tiempo, como todos los componentes que tiene. Yo no le estoy diciendo, o sea, todos los componentes que tiene ayuda a limpiar. A ver, cuando tú ves un cerebro que tiene Alzheimer, cuando tú lo ves en una imagen de resonancia magnética, tú vas a ver un montón, así como tú estabas diciendo, así como las termitas, vas a ver un montón de parches. Y al parecer esos parches son acumulaciones de una placa que se llama beta amiloide, que es una proteína que todos producimos, que todos limpiamos por la noche, porque el cerebro tiene un proceso de autolavado, de autolavado nocturno. Parece que en personas que tienen Alzheimer's, ese proceso de autolavado no se da. Entonces se empiezan a acumular, y se empiezan a acumular y se hacen placas. Y eso es
Se
lo
vuelven
que
tóxicos.
deteriora pues como el funcionamiento normal, el flujo normal digamos, de estimulación neuronal. Entonces, la marihuana lo que hace es que ayuda a ese proceso de limpiado,
De
ayuda
limpiado, o
de
sea, no
limpiado.
sé, ¿ves? Es que uno escucha
Ahora,
todo.
si uno fuma marihuana, he leído que yo he sabido que la memoria a corto plazo se pierde. Cuando tú estás con gente, con marihuaneros, eh, es muy común decir, oye, marica, ¿de qué estaba hablando? Eso sucede, pero parece que la marihuana con todos sus componentes, no solamente con el CBD, porque a la gente le gusta mucho, ay, es que el aceite de CBD es que es buenísimo. No, con todo el ramillete, pues, de compuestos que tiene la marihuana, ayuda a la limpieza ayuda a esa limpieza, mejor dicho, para no tener acumulaciones. Ahora, no se sabe si ayuda a que no se produzca tanto o a que, qué sé yo, de eso no se sabe nada, pero sí ayuda al limpiado. Entonces, yo no le estoy diciendo, vaya y fume vareta, pero si usted fuma vareta, siga. Ah.
¿En serio? Pero es que además, como que uno escucha, bueno, por ese lado uno escucha todo lo que tenga que ver con marihuana es solo una cosa y tiene los mismos componentes. Hoy con muchos 5.000 clases que tienen unas cositas, otras no. Porque hablan de unas que son medicinales y las otras no. Hay unas que son.
A ver, hay algunos compuestos que tiene la marihuana que son alucinógenos o que son psicotrópicos, que se llaman, creo, que es el THC, por ejemplo. El THC es eso que te pone high, que te pone chistosita. El CBD no es psicotrópico, o sea, no te pone loca. Simplemente como que te relaja y es
Que esa es la de uso
desinflamatorio.
medicinal.
Pues es que de uso medicinal es toda la mata, porque es que toda la mata tiene propiedades, lo que te digo. Toda la mata. Y parece que hay una cosa que se llama el entourage effect. El entourage es que cuando están juntos todos los compuestos, tienen ciertos efectos que no se obtienen cuando empiezas a sacarle esto y el aquello y el aquello y el aquello. Entonces yo soy partidaria de consumir toda la matita al tiempo.
¿Y qué podría ser lo mismo, pero que no sea marihuana? O sea, ¿qué
No
puedo
sé.
hacer yo que alimente la limpieza, o sea, o ayudar a la limpieza de eso?
Dormir bien.
Tengo una pregunta. Cuando tú dices en la noche uno limpia, bueno, eso y todo un montón de otras cosas, pero ¿es cuando uno duerme o por la noche?
No, es cuando uno duerme.
O sea, si tú tienes un ritmo de vida donde duermes toda la
Pero
mañana,
¿sabes qué es
¿también hace
chistoso?
lo mismo?
¿Sabes qué es chistoso? Mira, cuando uno duerme, es que parece que los estadios de sueño son diferentes, requieren, o sea, en una siestecita no se te van a limpiar los acumulados de beta-amiloide. En una siesta de media, un power nap, no vas a poder limpiar todas esas cuestiones. O sea, eso pasas por la noche cuando tú duermes el tajazo de las 7 horas que deberías estar durmiendo todas las noches. Lo chistoso es que a la gente le gusta combinar una cosa con la otra, entonces si más mejor. Entonces la gente fuma marihuana y se va a acostar a dormir. ¡Uy, qué chimba esto para mi cerebro! No, porque la marihuana afecta los estadios normales de sueño. Entonces parece que no está tan chévere fumar porro e irse a dormir. Si tu objetivo es tener mejor, digamos, es prevenir el Alzheimer.
Es que freestyle, pues no.
No, pues fume por la mañana. Fúmesela al almuerzo, aproveche la monchis y vas a acostar a dormir cuando ya no tiene efecto. Además que también, eso también parece que también es diferente si te la comes, es diferente si la fumas, es diferente si, qué sé yo. Y yo no soy experta en eso, obviamente. Yo leí hace algunos años un libro que se llama El antídoto contra el Alzheimer. El libro está en español también. Y la autora se llama Amy Berger. Ella es una veterana de la Fuerza Aérea gringa y es una dura en nutrición. Ella tiene, no sé, un montón de títulos y la hueva. Ahora, ella lo que hizo fue que hizo como un compendio de toda la literatura científica que hay hasta el momento hablando de la terapia de intervención por estilo de vida con el Alzheimer. Porque a uno le dicen mucho que, o sea, y una de las cosas más terroríficas del Alzheimer es que los medicamentos no sirven para un culo. Y realmente es una enfermedad incurable. Una vez que la tienes, ya la lleva porque no hay nada que se pueda hacer. Y todavía más aterrador es que parece que el Alzheimer empieza aproximadamente 2 décadas antes de que empiecen los primeros síntomas. Entonces, si por ejemplo, si tú fueras a tener Alzheimer a los 80 años, posiblemente tu cerebro se está deteriorando, o sea, empezaste a tenerla desde los 30, una cosa así.
Sí,
y eso es algo que la gente realmente no sabe y por eso uno no se preocupa porque es una no solución a un no problema, porque si tú estás en the prime of your life, ¿a ti te va a importar un culo en este momento?
Es como el tema del sol y las manchas y el cáncer de piel, en fin, desde ya.
¿Qué se bloqueó tú? Yo sé, exactamente. Entonces, como no hay tanta conciencia de que eso realmente puede pasar, le puede pasar eso le puede pasar a cualquiera, pero hay cierta disposición genética que parece que influencia también la incidencia de que tú tengas Alzheimer o no.
Bueno, ¿qué toca hacer?
Primero que todo, búscate unos papás que no tengan historia de Alzheimer en la familia. Segundo, quédate para ver esta entrevista, que de pronto te vamos a dar unas buenas ideas. Yo quedé muy convencida y siempre he estado convencida de que si no sirve para un culo, igual hiciste algo bueno con lo que te vamos a contar.
¿Y es asible? O sea,
Es más que asible, es súper asible.
Es fácil.
Ahora, fácil no es simple, pero tal vez no sea tan fácil, porque hay que hacer, cambios del estilo de vida nunca son fáciles. Los cambios de estilo de vida siempre requieren un poco de trabajo, requieren organización, requieren que uno tenga consistencia, que uno tenga cierto nivel de disciplina y organización más que todo. Ahora, la siguiente porción pues obviamente toda la entrevista con la experta va a estar en inglés. Entonces, si usted está escuchando esto y usted no sabe inglés, yo le aconsejo que se vaya para YouTube y vea la versión en video porque eventualmente va a estar subtitulada. Si a usted le interesa estar envuelto en este proyecto de traducción y de difusión de información de calidad, yo los invito a que vean la descripción del video, se vayan para Patreon, para el link que hay en Patreon y consideren darnos un aporte mensual. Si usted no puede dar un aporte mensual, goodbye. Si usted no puede dar un aporte mensual, igual nos va a ayudar muchísimo que nos den un like, que se suscriban si no lo han hecho todavía y que compartan este video subtitulado o no subtitulado con las personas que ustedes creen que les va a hacer bien. Ahora, la subtitulación de los videos, lo más probable es que salga en pedazos. Entonces, si usted quiere acelerar la subtitulación de esos pedazos, más o menos esa es la cantidad de clics que tiene que hacer para darnos un aporte mensual. Entonces, muchas gracias por la atención. Vámonos a hablar con la experta, con Amy Berger. Chao, mami.
Un beso.
All right, we're on. So, hello, everybody. I am very, very excited today because I have a super surprise for you. I have a very, very important guest to me, very important guest, and I'm sure that for you is going to be like that as well. I have Amy Berger. She has a master's degree in human nutrition from the University of Bridgeport, and is also a certified nutrition specialist and nutritional therapy practitioner, as well as US Airforce Veteran. She is the author of the Alzheimer's Antidote, using a low-carb, high-fat diet to fight Alzheimer's disease, memory loss, and cognitive decline, where she does the awesome job of explaining a very complex topic in simple terms for anyone to understand and implement and improve their health and the health of their affected relatives. She also wrote the Stall Slayer, 7 roadblocks to keto fat loss and what to do about them, which I have not yet read, but I will. And she's working yet, I hope, in another book in a moment. Her areas of interest include using low-carb and ketogenic diets as nutritional therapies for conditions such as diabetes types 1 and 2, obesity, PCOS, migraines, and acid reflux, cardiovascular disease, and neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and epilepsy. In her blog, to be found at doitnutrition.com, you will find a wide range of very valuable resources and information that she kindly shares right now with everyone who wants to improve their nutritional practice. So, Amy, thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Yeah, thank you. No problem.
So, this podcast is basically it's sort of new. And there is a learning curve to this, and I'm going through it very slowly. It's called autorregúlese, which is like, in English, it will be something like get your stuff together, get a grip on yourself, and stop complaining about things that you can do something about.
Uh-huh.
I have to think about a less like bossy title to it in English. I still have to work on it. So, Amy, tell me, what's happening in your life right now?
Sí, primero yo quiero decir que hablo español, pero no tan bien para explicar sobre la alimentación o la salud en español, así tenemos que hacerlo en inglés. But I speak a little bit of Spanish.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome.
En la universidad.
¿Has estado en países de habla hispana?
No, solamente visité a la España hace muchos años, but just no estudiaba en un país que habla español.
Pero lo hablas muy bien.
Solamente en la escuela y en la universidad.
Excelente.
So now in English, what's going on in my life? I don't know. Like you said, I have a new book out that's about helping people who are stalled in fat loss on low-carb or ketogenic diets. And I'm working with Dr. Eric Westman on another book that will be out in December, we hope. And that's about how to find your own personal level of carbohydrate tolerance and then build your diet around that. Because many people do really, really well on very strict ketogenic diets. Not everybody needs that. some people can have a little bit more carbohydrate and do totally fine. So
that is very relevant right now.
Yeah.
That is very relevant, and for many people right now. Okay, I will go back to that if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
Later
Yeah.
on. Okay. Amy, I brought you in and I sent you the invitation because I want to talk about a very, very important topic to me, and one that I think that people are not very, very aware of, and that is Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline that comes with age. There is a lot that we don't know, and a lot that we think that we do know, but nobody can be really sure. And I myself find it that there are very basic things about this that I don't really understand. So I would like to ask you like super, super basic questions first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am going to throw a couple of statements that I found around the interwebs and the common popular belief about Alzheimer's and what we can do or what we cannot do or whatever, that I find a little irritating, and I'm sure that are going to irritate you as well. So feel free to rant as you please. Okay, so let's start with the first question, and the one that I really don't know. What is the difference, if there is any, between dementia, and there are many different kinds of dementia, and Alzheimer's?
So Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. Dementia is a larger category that includes Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia. It could be dementia that's coming from Parkinson's disease or from a traumatic brain injury.
Oh.
So Alzheimer's is just one type of dementia.
All right. And they all have in common that they are age-related?
No, you can have dementia if you have, like I said, a traumatic brain injury, or if you could be a young person if you have a stroke and it affects your cognition. So it's not always age-related. It often is, but not always.
Okay, that is very scary. And what is happening in the brain with dementia? What does it look like? What's the deal? What's happening inside?
With Alzheimer's specifically?
With Alzheimer's, I would like to know.
Yeah, so for Alzheimer's, se dice la enfermedad diabetes tipo 3. They call it type 3 diabetes, or diabetes of the brain. And where that comes from is the primary problem in the brain of somebody with Alzheimer's disease is that the brain is no longer properly metabolizing glucose, and glucose is the brain's primary fuel. Mm-hmm. So if the brain is no longer able to process this fuel, it's not getting energy. And so I explain it that Alzheimer's is an energy shortage in the brain, and it's like your brain is getting tired. And what happens when you get tired? You make mistakes, you get clumsy. So what happens when your brain gets tired? I mean, that's oversimplifying it, but that's really the main problem. And we're not sure why that problem is happening, but that is the major problem, that the brain cells are basically starving to death.
Okay. I think it's a good time to throw you one of those statements. But Amy, everybody knows that the brain can only work with glucose as fuel.
Right. Well, so that's not true. Glucose is one of the fuels the brain can use. The brain can also run on something called ketones, which are just another fuel molecule that's very normal in the human body. The thing is, most people are not in a metabolic state where they're producing ketones. In order for that, there's different ways to make it happen, but the main way to make it happen is to eat a very, very low carbohydrate diet. Because when you don't have enough, so glucose, which fuels the brain and a lot of the rest of the body, comes from carbohydrate and other things, but the main source is carbohydrate in your food. And when you all of a sudden don't have a lot of carbohydrate in your diet, when you're, very low carb diet, your body and your brain have to switch to using something else. And they'll switch to using mostly fat. And when you break down a lot of fat, you produce ketones as a secondary byproduct of that. And the ketones are very, very good for fueling the brain. So it's not true that glucose is the only fuel for the brain.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Now, there is something that that worries me a lot about this whole Alzheimer's mechanism, and it is that there's this statement that I found. Maybe it's true, I don't know, but it's very scary. And it's like, when you find out the first symptoms of the disease, there is nothing that you can actually do about it, because it's been like that. It's been there for a while now. Is that true?
So parts of it are true, parts of it aren't.
Mm-hmm.
The part that's true is that the very scary thing about this disease is that by the time you have enough signs and symptoms to be diagnosed, the problem has been going on for a long time. In some people, it's years. They can, so if the problem is that your brain is not using glucose properly, they can measure and identify the decline in your brain's use of glucose in people as young as their 30s and 40s. And those people, those people have no signs or symptoms of dementia. Their brain is working perfectly fine, but they're already on the path. But their brain is compensating. They're still young and healthy that they don't notice there's a problem. It's only when the problem goes on for so long that the damage becomes so severe and so widespread. That's when you start having your symptoms. By the time that happens, by the time you cross that threshold, the problem is already really severe. Okay. So at the moment you get diagnosed, you're already well into that disease pathway. Now, the part that I disagree with, so that is the true part. Okay. The part that I disagree with is that there's nothing we can do. A lot of, now I have to be clear, the research is in the very early stages. There's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions, but that doesn't mean we don't know anything. There is plenty we do know. And one of the beautiful things that we know is that even though the brain in Alzheimer's is not using glucose properly, it does use ketones properly. So the brain is like starving because it can't use glucose. Let's give it ketones. Let's at least provide some fuel from somewhere else.
Okay. That makes me feel a little less bleak about this.
Like I said, the research is in its very early stages, but it's very promising, because right now, there are no drugs that are effective. There's no alternativa. There's nothing that works. There's nothing that's effective. There's no, at the very best the drugs do is maybe slow the decline. They slow down you getting worse. They don't stop you from getting worse. They just help you get worse more slowly, and that's really the best we can offer people. Like, do we have nothing else to help these people?
Oh man. Okay, this takes me to the other question that I'm going. Let's go back to scaring people. What can be counted, or what are like very characteristic early signs of cognitive decline or Alzheimer's disease? Like, what can you be like looking out for?
It's different people experience it differently. It could come on as just being a little bit forgetful. So if you'll hear that people like accountants or people that do a lot of math in their profession, that they calculate very easily in their head, they start to not be able to do that kind of math in their head as easily. Misplacing things, forgetting words. Like if we're having a conversation and I forget the word for the mug or the cup, like no puedo recordar la palabra.
estás? ¿Cómo estás?
I'll just say a little bit of Spanish here and there. Es bueno para mí para platicar.
Muy bien.
So, like little things like that, or personality changes sometimes can come on, like just your behavior is abnormal for you.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
like people get irritated easily, or
yeah, that's a pretty common one, getting irritable, getting angry when that's not normally your personality. That's usually a later symptom though. Usually it's just like things slip your mind. Like you don't normally have to write everything down, but now you start forgetting you had an appointment that you forgot, or just things you were supposed to do during the day that you forgot about. So it starts very small, and it's usually only when that happens more and more that people notice it.
Okay, now you're freaking the shit out of me. like I have always had it. but there, I mean, like that's important to know that there are people who are naturally forgetful. That's not.
Yeah, I mean that's an important thing. Is it different from how you are normally, and is it getting worse?
So that's the point. I mean, are you doing it more, or is it getting more confusing?
Yeah.
Does it happen more frequently?
Right.
Or if you are very familiar with a task, can you not perform it correctly? I think that's a very, very scary thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go to the whys. And I love origin stories. Why, as a nutritionist, did you end up writing a book about Alzheimer's disease, Amy? Please tell us now.
That's a good question. I no hay una historia de esta enfermedad en mi familia.
Okay.
I have no family history of this, but I read the book Good Calories, Bad Calories by an author named Gary Taubes, and there was a chapter in that book that mentioned something about a possible connection between glucose, insulin, and Alzheimer's disease. And I had never heard of that. I was already eating a low-carb diet for many years by the time I read this book. But this was the first time I ever saw anything about that. And I said, wow, that's really interesting. But since I didn't have a family history, I wasn't that compelled to look into it. But a few years later, I was in graduate school for nutrition, and I had to do my thesis. And I needed to pick a topic. I needed to find something to research. And I said, let me go back and look at that Alzheimer's insulin glucose thing. And is there even enough research on that? Is there enough published medical literature and scientific literature? And when I started looking, it was everywhere. It was everywhere. Like, this isn't new. This might be the first time somebody listening to this or watching is hearing about this. This is not new. Some of these papers, these published research goes back to like the 1990s. And I know that feels like yesterday. Para mí, that feels like yesterday. But it's decades ago. It's 30 years ago.
It is 30 years ago.
Yeah. So we've known for a long time that one of the big problems in this illness is the lack of energy supply, the lack of glucose in the brain. But anyway, so why I wrote a book about it and ended up learning, when I left school and I had learned all this information, I really believed, and I still believe, that this is life-saving information. And if I didn't put it out in some way to the world, who would ever know? Nobody was talking about it. Everybody talks about low carb or ketogenic diets for weight loss and type 2 diabetes and PCOS and all these other diseases. Nobody was talking about Alzheimer's. Nobody was even talking about the fact that the problem is it's a metabolic problem. It's an energy problem. Nobody was even saying that.
Why not?
If you get diagnosed with this, no one ever tells you that the problem is that your brain is starving for fuel. And so that's, I guess that's the long answer to that question.
No, it's not long. I mean, like, I can't, I mean, ever since I read the book, and it was not yesterday, I mean, ever since I read the book, I have had this sense of urgency that it bothers me. It bothers me. And I mean, like, and we are not talking, as you said, I mean, everybody talks about like low carb diets and then everything to lose weight, which is important. It is important. It is important that you feel good with your body. It is important that you get healthier and in general, and that you look amazing. That is important. But I cannot imagine a more terrifying scenario than seeing no recognition of your loved ones when you look at them. I mean, I cannot imagine anything worse except dead.
Well, people say that Alzheimer's disease is the most feared disease. People fear it even more than cancer, because at least with cancer, there are treatments. The treatments are terrible. I mean, the chemotherapy and radiation often kill people more than the cancer itself would kill them, but at least there's an option. There's a strategy for treatment. And we have, you know, many, probably millions at this point of cancer survivors. There are no Alzheimer's survivors. Nobody ever gets better, right? Because there's no treatment. There is no, so far as we know right now, there's no effective treatment. There's no drug, there's no therapy that actually helps this, except what you and I might talk about in this interview. That's why people are so afraid of it, because so far as most of us know, there's nothing you can do. You're going to get worse and worse, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Fucks me up. Okay, I have another statement. Another one of those fun statements. A way to maybe perhaps prevent Alzheimer's disease or cognitive decline in general is to keep your brain active with challenging tasks, because a lazy brain is more likely to get it. So get out that lazy brain, go to those crossword puzzles and Sudokus, otherwise Alzheimer's. So what do you think about that?
So I think there's nothing wrong with keeping your brain active and with doing puzzles, learning a new language, learning a musical instrument, and any type of new task you're going to learn helps make new connections in the brain. But plenty of people, like very intelligent, hardworking thinkers, get Alzheimer's disease. We have people with PhDs. We have expert, very intelligent people who are not sitting around watching TV all day. These are people.
Those are not lazy brains.
Sorry?
Those are not lazy brains.
Exactly. These people are not lazy. They don't have lazy brains. They're doing brilliant research all the time. So I really don't think that's the problem in Alzheimer's. And here's the thing. This is a relatively new illness, right? It's not, I mean, it existed in the past, but it was very rare. It's very rare. Now, just like type 2 diabetes, just like obesity, just like cardiovascular disease, hypertension, all of these other modern diseases, they always existed, even hundreds or thousands of years ago, but they were very, very rare. Now they're exploding in incidence. And here's something that I really like, it's really important for people to know. When we think about, if your listeners know a little bit even about low carb and ketogenic diets and the harms of the modern diet that's so high in sugar and so high in refined carbohydrate, there's no part of the body that is not negatively affected when you have, when your blood sugar and your insulin are high all the time. The entire body, right? We know with type 2 diabetes, or even, here's the thing, even if you don't have type 2 diabetes, even though they call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes, the problem is not always your blood sugar. The problem is insulin. There are millions of people out there who have a normal blood sugar level, but their blood sugar is only normal because very high insulin is keeping the blood sugar normal. But in so many people, the high insulin, even with normal sugar, the high insulin is a major factor in driving so many illnesses people live with now. PCOS, hypertension, high blood pressure, gout, In a lot of men, it's erectile dysfunction.
What?
Growth of enlarged prostate gland. So many things, skin tags, so many things come from this, even if you don't have diabetes. There is no part of the body that is not affected poorly by this. The kidneys, the eyes, the skin, the ovaries, the liver, the blood vessels, the heart. Why would we think the brain is spared? Why would we think that for some reason the brain is protected against all this other bad stuff happening from the terrible diet that most of us grew up on and maybe still eat right now?
Absolutely.
The brain is not protected, and like I said, there's a lot we don't know, but nobody ignores the fact now that diet is a primary cause, or poor diet is a primary cause of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, all these things. Why do we ignore that it's probably also a major cause of Alzheimer's disease? Why do we pretend like the brain is not susceptible to all this same harm that comes to the rest of the body?
And what really upsets me about this is that, as you said, this is not a new thing. This is not a new thing. And however, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. I don't like that. But as I think about this, there is no real profit if you tell people that by changing lifestyle they are going to get better. And there is a lot more profit in the pharmaceutical approach, which hasn't proven to be effective to this moment. Ugh. Now, let's talk about a little bit about what doctors know versus what doctors are supposed to know. Because I have a problem with that part. I mean, like, I know doctors, and they have all my respect, but sometimes when it comes to these topics and when it comes to this kind of knowledge of something that is not new, they just look like flabbergasted, like what are you talking about? What is this thing? What is this? What sort of sorcery is this? And they look at me. I'm annoying per se because I look like I joined a freaking cult ever since I'm having this diet. So my credibility is like, what's happening there?
I think there's two things with regard to diet in general and how nutrition and food affect the whole body, including the brain. Doctors just don't get educated in nutrition. It's not part of medical school. It's not their training is medicine. Their training is drugs. Their training is so it's not really their fault. They just don't receive that education in food, in nutrients, in and I think the other part, specifically with regard to Alzheimer's, is that and I understand this, like from a doctor's perspective, Alzheimer's seems so complicated and so confusing and so hard to understand. How could it be possible that diet could be either causing it or diet could be the solution? Like that, like how there's no way that could be right. Yeah, there's no way that you could help Alzheimer's with a diet. Like, that's crazy. Now, and the thing is, most of the doctors that you and I know and follow online and stuff, all the low carb and ketogenic doctors, none of them learned this in medical school. They all learned it themselves, either through their own health and weight problems. Like there's many doctors that were overweight or obese. Medical professionals that couldn't control their own weight because they didn't have the right knowledge. Or maybe they had diabetes, maybe they had heart disease, maybe they had some other problem. They had to learn it on their own to heal themselves. Or some of them didn't have any personal health problems, but they saw patients getting much better on low carb or ketogenic diets, and they said, hey, what are you doing? It's working so well. And I wish more doctors would do that, because most doctors ignore and they just say, well, wow, that's working, keep doing it. They're not curious enough to say,
they are not
teach
curious
me what you're doing so I can teach all my other patients.
Exactly. And many of them, I mean, the gods bless them, but they don't have time either. I mean, they have like eternal shifts, and then they have to go home, and then they have families and children, dogs, and whatever. But however, I remember when I started the diet, and I was a butter chugger. I mean, like, I started with the full high fat. I'm gonna have all creams and cheeses and I don't know. I mean, like, I live in Germany. Bratwurst, yay! And then, of course, I had my lipids done, and he just told me, you have the cholesterol of a truck driver. What is happening here? And I was like, yeah, it's a little high. I changed my diet. And he was like, if you don't change it back, I'm gonna put you on statins. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I think this is the last time I'm gonna come over here. And that was it. He was not curious. He was not like, he didn't ask why have you had migraines or whatever. Not at all. Mm-hmm. Not at all. So the lack of curiosity can be condemned at a certain point. I don't think I am the one to do it, but goddamn.
It's a big problem. It's a big problem because people need help and they're not getting it from their doctors.
They are not getting it from the doctors. That is very sad. That is very sad. And many people think that only from the doctor can you get that kind of help. Most people think so. Yeah. Okay. I have another. I have another one. And it has to do with the pharmaceutical approach. Can you please explain to my audience and to me what amyloid beta plaques are?
Okay, so this is going to be a little complicated. I'll try to explain, simply, but some people think that this beta amyloid stuff is the cause of Alzheimer's. There's a different approach that I subscribe to that doesn't agree with that. So amyloid is a type of protein that everybody's brain produces this, not just Alzheimer's. Everybody's brain makes it. The problem in Alzheimer's is that this stuff builds up. Amyloid comes out of the cell, and it's supposed to be cleared away in a timely manner. When it's not cleared away, it builds up and it just stays there. And when it builds up and stays there, it kind of mixes in with itself and links upon itself, forming what we call the amyloid plaques. And these are just big, how do I explain? They just are fragments of protein that block the neuron's ability to communicate with each other. It blocks the signals from coming out of these cells to talk to each other, which is how healthy cognition happens. And the problem, though, like I said, the problem is not the fact that this amyloid exists. It exists in everybody. The problem in Alzheimer's disease is that it's not being cleared away, so it's staying there and it's building up and making all these plaques. And one of the things that seems to impair the clearance of this amyloid is chronically high insulin. Yeah, and I remember I said they call this disease type 3 diabetes, but even if they always diagnose type 2 diabetes through your blood sugar. Even if your blood sugar is normal, if you have very high insulin all the time, this is going to be a problem for you, because the enzyme, the thing that clears away this amyloid stuff, the garbage crew, the sanitation crew that clears it away, is the same enzyme, the same sanitation crew that clears away insulin. And if you have a lot of insulin circulating all the time, this enzyme is too busy dealing with all the insulin, and it leaves behind the amyloid to build up. And, most people eating the modern diet that's so high in carbs do have high insulin. And
all the time.
Yeah, well, not all the time, but let's say most of the time. Okay. Most of the time. And the reason nobody knows is because nobody tests insulin. You can have your fasting insulin level measured at a doctor's office or a lab. You can have an insulin level measured after you eat. You have to be at a lab to do it, but everybody measures glucose when you, or I don't know if it's Germany or in the Spanish-speaking world, but when you go for a checkup, they check your fasting glucose. Sometimes they'll check your hemoglobin A1C. Those are only measures of glucose. They never look at insulin. This is why we have millions of people who are not diagnosed with diabetes.
Or pre-diabetes.
Or diabetes or pre-diabetes, but because their blood sugar is perfectly normal, but they have obesity, they have gout, they have high blood pressure, they have skin tags, they have PCOS, they have a fatty liver, they have migraines. I mean, there's so many things that come from this problem that nobody knows because nobody is looking at insulin levels. But again, the doctors are not trained in this. They just don't know.
And that sucks because, like, if you are feeling like crap, if you are having all kinds of problems, when you go to the doctor and they tell you, no, your sugar is normal. Okay, go home. Oh, well, look at that. My sugar is normal.
Exactly.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Exactly.
Bother me. Okay, now I'm a little worried about my man.
Well, it's a very common thing to have that normal sugar but high insulin. Very common.
Oh man. And how does okay, you said that you subscribe to another kind of thought about amyloid plaques and plaques, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Right. No, thanks for reminding me. There's another perspective on this, that we believe the amyloid is actually protective. Amyloid is secreted by neurons that are under duress or under stress. We see a lot of amyloid being secreted in the brain in a traumatic brain injury because it seems to help protect the brain. It's kind of complicated, but it helps regenerate protective substances. It may even have antioxidant functions. And what was I going to say? Wait, I just lost my train of thought.
No! It's about it being protective.
Oh, right. One of the things amyloid does is, like, biochemically at the molecular level, it shifts glucose away from being burned for energy and toward other pathways that can generate compounds that help rebuild and restore these cells.
Wow.
So that looks bad for amyloid, right? Oh my gosh, if the problem in Alzheimer's is that we're not burning enough glucose and the cells are starving for fuel, well, then if this amyloid is interfering with that process, then amyloid's a problem. Except this would not be a problem if you had some other fuel. If amyloid is reducing the burning of glucose and sending it toward these protective, helpful, restorative things, then it's only a problem if there's no other fuel available. Now your brain cells have nothing to use for energy. But if some of that glucose is being used for these protective pathways, but you have an alternative fuel, let's say you have some ketones available, now we can send the glucose toward this protection, toward restoring and repairing, and we can use ketones for the energy. The problem is when you have high insulin, you do not produce ketones. We only make a lot. Now, you'll make a teeny tiny amount of ketones all the time, almost
maybe at night. Maybe at night.
Yeah, usually overnight, or sometimes they'll just be a teeny tiny amount, just that it's not measurable really with the technology we have. But in general, we only produce a significant level of ketones when the insulin is low. So if you are somebody that eats a very high carb diet and your insulin is high most of the time, you're never going to be making enough ketones to fuel the brain. So now the brain is not using glucose, but there's nothing else. There's no other fuel.
There's no other thing. It shuts down.
Yeah.
Now, Amy, goddamn.
And before I forget though, because you were talking about the pharmaceutical approach with the amyloid.
Yeah. I forgot.
Yeah. Most of the drugs developed for Alzheimer's are what they call anti-amyloid drugs. They're drugs that are designed to reduce the formation of this amyloid. or to get rid of it once it's already formed. Every single one of these drugs has been a failure. They have failed in that they don't make the Alzheimer's any better. They don't improve it. In fact, research on one of these drugs had to be stopped early because the people on the drug were doing so much worse than the people on the placebo. Getting rid of the amyloid was making these people worse, which suggests also that amyloid is probably doing something beneficial. You know,
that's why they realized it.
Sorry?
That's when they realized that maybe it's protecting.
I still don't think they have realized it. That's kind of an alternative theory. The mainstream conventional approach still is going after this amyloid. There have been numerous drugs, probably 4 or 5 of these drugs, if not more, and every single one of them is not. It does nothing. So
and how long have they been used as standard of care for Alzheimer's disease?
That's a good question. I don't know. Probably at least 20 years, if not more.
Oh, no.
Sure.
What?
Like I said, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But they're not new. I mean,
it would make sense.
This is the first thing they tried. I mean, because they've always thought that the buildup of these plaques is causing the disease. So why wouldn't the number one drug target be to reduce these plaques? But it has not worked. It has never worked.
Oh man. But Amy, tell us, how can we get ketones naturally? How can we get ramp up that ketone production to counteract this craziness going on in the brain, or to prevent it, or to treat it once it has already started? Maybe not cure it, but help it.
Right. And just so people understand, like I said earlier, the research is in the early stage. I can't say that this is not a cure for Alzheimer's disease. I'm a nutritionist. I'm not even allowed to use the word treat. All I can say is that giving the brain some fuel in the form of ketones helps make up for that energy shortage it's having because it can't use glucose. So we do know, and there is definitely published research on this, not just in rats and mice, but in humans with Alzheimer's disease, that providing some.
Oh wait, yeah, you're back. Wait a minute. I lost you exactly in the moment where you are giving us the solution of everything. Like the internet fell down.
Oh no. Okay. You can hear me now though?
I can hear you now. Okay. So you were explaining that perfectly, and then it shut down. No.
Where did I stop?
You were talking about the production of ketones, and you were talking about like diet not being able to. It's not the cure for Alzheimer's, and we are not saying that.
Right. What I can say is that looking at Alzheimer's disease as a metabolic problem, and metabolic means it has to do with energy. If this is an energy shortage in the brain, then the number one most important thing to do is provide energy in some form that the brain can use. And we know that the Alzheimer's brain can use ketones. And there's a ton of research on this, not just in mice, not just in rats, but in humans with Alzheimer's disease. And so how to make ketones, if we need to get ketones to the brain, how are we going to do that? The most effective, I shouldn't say most effective, one of the ways to do it is to go on a very, very low carbohydrate or ketogenic diet. Because when your carbohydrate intake is really low, your insulin stays low. And when insulin is very low, you will burn more fat, and burning fat produces ketones. So that's one way to do it. There's a lot of people, especially if you are older and if you already have the disease, it can be really difficult for somebody in that state to stick to a ketogenic diet. If you can't or won't do a ketogenic diet, you can use coconut oil or MCT oil, which those fats are digested differently than other fats, and they more easily convert into ketones. So even if you're eating carbs, if you take MCT oil or coconut oil, you'll have a little bit of ketones.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's not, I don't think it's as effective as the diet. And you can also, have you heard of exogenous ketones?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
So yeah, that's another way. It's like a ketone supplement. They usually come as a powder that you can mix in water and you drink, and that will also give you ketones. But the thing I need people to understand is that if this disease is coming from, or at least in part coming from, damage done by a poor diet and bad lifestyle habits over years and decades, just giving the ketones from MCT oil or from exogenous ketones is not going to repair that damage. All that's doing is giving you the fuel, which you do need. You do need to give the brain that fuel. But if you actually want to address the problem, address the root cause of the problem, you have to address why this is happening in the first place. And if it's happening because of chronically high insulin, if it's happening, there could be nutrient deficiencies involved. If you have a vitamin B12 deficiency, that can cause dementia or, you know, cognitive decline and memory loss. So you have to address that stuff. You can't just give the ketones and expect somebody to get better.
They might, do they notice any like temporary relief or something like something improves at least temporarily when they take the ketones or the MCT oil?
This is the most promising and encouraging thing about this whole situation. Most people, not all, most people respond at least a little bit. Their cognition and memory is a little bit better.
Wow.
It's usually, it's not 100%, but here's the thing. Like I said, if you're only giving the ketones, you're only addressing one issue. What if, what they have not done yet is a study of the ketogenic diet on a large group of people. They've done isolated cases, one person here, one person there in different studies, and those people were in a mild state, like mild cognitive impairment, which is the precursor to Alzheimer's, or people in the very early stage. And they do seem to get much better, but these are it's only one person in each of these studies. The larger studies are always done with the exogenous ketones or with the MCT oil. It's never the diet. How much more powerful, how much better would these people get if we did the diet and the ketones?
That'd be awesome.
It would be, but they don't do it. And I think part of it is I understand why. I wish it wasn't this way, but in the research world, if they really want to identify what single thing is having this effect, they have to isolate that one variable. So they can't do the diet and the ketones and exercise and brain training, because then they don't know which of how much of the benefit is each of these things responsible for.
Too many variables.
Do them by themselves.
Okay.
That sucks. You know, like that's why.
That's very accurate, but it sucks for the people.
Yeah, but the fact that they're getting, the fact that they're getting any better at all is a miracle. It's huge. Yeah, because as far as we know, there's no effective treatment for this. So if they're getting even a little bit better, they should be shouting this everywhere.
This bothers me. This bothers me so much. This just okay. There is one more thing that I would like to discuss with you, and it's like the genetic component of the disease, because we have been told that it's genetic. There's nothing you can do about it. You have it. You have been cursed, and that's it. So that worries me because it's in my family, and it worries me like more than I can tell. Tell us a little bit about that the cursed gene.
Yeah, it's a good question, because there is a genetic component. There is a gene, so some people might have heard of it. It's called ApoE4, ApoE4. And having this gene does make you more susceptible to Alzheimer's. So we each have 2 copies of every gene, one from our mother, one from our father. If you have 1 copy of this ApoE4 gene, you are at increased risk for Alzheimer's. If you have 2 copies, you are at super, super extra increased risk. But this gene does not cause Alzheimer's disease, because plenty of people that have this disease don't have this gene at all, not even one copy. They don't have the gene. So you can get Alzheimer's without having this gene.
Oh.
And there's millions of people that have this gene that never develop Alzheimer's disease.
Okay. Okay.
So it's kind of, you know how, have you ever heard the phrase, genetics loads the gun, diet and lifestyle pull the trigger?
Oh no, I hadn't, but I like it.
You are born with this genetic makeup. You have an increased susceptibility, but that doesn't, you're not programmed to get this disease. Nobody's programmed to get sick. Something in your environment, in your lifestyle, in your diet, something in your surrounding has to trigger that susceptibility. It has to like flip that switch to make the illness happen. And so there's, in the country Nigeria, there's a tribal population that has a very high incidence of this gene. Many of them have this gene. They don't get Alzheimer's disease. Why? Because they don't eat garbage. They don't eat the crap that most of us eat in the industrialized world. Or that's my guess anyway. But no, this gene does not cause Alzheimer's. It does make you more susceptible. All that means, it's just like there's the BRCA, the gene that's associated with breast cancer. None of these things cause the disease. They just...
Well, we don't need to go chopping our teeth off or something like that.
They make you... It increases the likelihood that you might get the disease, but what is it that's causing it? It's the gene itself isn't causing anything. So all that means is that you have to be especially careful about your diet and lifestyle if you want to potentially prevent this from happening. And I say potentially because I wish I could promise that we know you can prevent this. We don't know that yet.
Okay. No, that is very helpful.
Yeah.
I was very, very scared.
No,
okay.
This gene is not a death sentence. This gene is just, like I said, millions of people have the gene and do not ever get Alzheimer's, and millions of people have Alzheimer's and don't have the gene.
And there should be some kind of advantage to having that kind of gene. I mean, like if we have evolved to have it like that, there should be an advantage to it.
There is. I'm just learning about that recently. If this gene is so heavily associated with such a severe illness, why did this persist? Like, why does it still even exist in the human family? Any gene that has existed throughout evolution must have been beneficial at one point in time. And it was. The ApoE4 seems to be associated with much, much greater immunity. So like you'd be a lot less susceptible to infectious disease or other types of things, but then it makes you more susceptible to something else.
I heard somewhere that ApoE4 carriers, they have this lipid oxidation irregularity or something like that, but I didn't really understand how it goes.
Yeah, it affects, genes usually don't affect just one thing. They affect like so many different things in the body. ApoE4 affects how the body delivers lipids, meaning fats and cholesterol, to the body and especially to the brain. And your listeners and viewers probably are learning now, we don't need to be afraid of cholesterol. Your brain is built out of fat and cholesterol. About 25% of all the cholesterol in your body is in your brain. So your brain needs a lot of cholesterol, it needs a lot of fat, and if you have a gene that alters the way your brain gets that stuff, you will be more susceptible to this illness.
Oh.
The gene still doesn't cause it, but that's one of the factors, is that the delivery of those critical nutrients is a little different with the ApoE4 gene.
I feel so selfish right now because I'm learning so much and I wasn't even planning on it. Okay. There is one thing that you say in your blog, which I love because you write as you speak and it's so incredibly clear. It's like here, I'm listening to you while I'm reading it. Is that we have to find a way to simplify things and to make it accessible for people, like not to complicate things so much. One of the other statements that I found is like, okay, so a ketogenic diet, but that diet is just so complicated. You have to measure shit, you have to buy ketones, you have to be like, I don't know, like you have to weight everything. What do you think about that? How difficult or how simple it is to start like dipping your toesies in something that looks like a well-formulated ketogenic diet?
So the ketogenic diet is as simple as you decide to make it for yourself. All you really have to do is keep your total carbohydrate intake very, very low. That's what makes a ketogenic diet. That's all. A very, very low carbohydrate intake. You can weigh and measure and track and do all that stuff if you want to. You don't have to. If you are on a budget, if you don't have a lot of money, you don't have to eat only organic food. You don't have to eat special fancy things that you can only buy online. You go to the regular store, go to, you know, su bodega o su tienda favorita y just comprar la comida regular, la comida simple, like it just, you know, pollo, res, pescado, like you just beef, poultry, seafood, eggs, dairy, cheese, nuts and seeds, non-starchy vegetables. It's not hard. It is not hard. Well, it's not hard. It's not complicated.
It is not easy, but it's simple.
Right. Simple does not mean easy. It's simple. All you have to do is keep your carbohydrates very, very low. For some people, that's really hard because we are addicted to sugar. We're addicted to starch, our bread, our pastries, our rice, pasta. But the ketogenic diet it's only complicated if you make it complicated for yourself. You can go out, se puede comer en los restaurantes. You just have to order, you know, instead of a starchy side dish, get a vegetable. Instead of a potato, you know, I would like double broccoli, please. Or instead of pasta, can I have a salad or something? It's very, you can just do this in regular life. You can eat at any restaurant. You go to the grocery store, buy regular food.
You can eat in any restaurant. There is always an option. And if the option is too small, you can eat more. I have a problem with the fact that it has been made to this very mysterious thing that there is only one way to do it, and if you don't put butter in your coffee, if you don't put like butter in your steak, if you don't do this, then you're not gonna be in ketosis, you're not gonna lose weight, and you're always gonna have migraines, or you're gonna get like whatever. So now in order to make it very, very simple for our listeners, I mean, many of the people in my audience are from South America, and in South America we are particular about our rice and our corn. Yeah, corn is absolutely ubiquitous. I mean, like there is no way, and I've heard people say, even people who are severely overweight, I cannot give up my arepa in the morning. It's just not gonna happen. That's my thing. It's not gonna happen. I'm like, what, dude?
You know, you have to make a choice. Do you want to eat the rice and the beans, or do you want to lose 100 pounds? Do you want to eat the arepa or the tortillas, or do you want to reverse your diabetes? And en Sudamérica también hay la tradición de la carne, or el carne.
La carnita, la carne.
Yeah, Sudamérica es famosa para el carne. I'm like the beef, the gauchos, come on, you guys have the best beef. Eat that.
We
this
do,
is
but
like,
Amy, everybody knows that meat will make you fat.
when you don't, so eating fat and eating fatty meat, the pork, the beef, when you eat that with all the sugar and starch and carbs, it will make you fat. Guess what? When you don't eat the sugar and starch and carbs, then when you eat the fat and the meat and everything, it doesn't make you fat.
It does not make you fat.
Now listen,
Oh my God.
soy de Nueva York, pero en 10 años y más, no, I haven't eaten a bagel, right? La ciudad de Nueva York es famoso para bagels.
I know.
Do I want to eat a bagel or do I want to be obese? Not that like one bagel makes you obese, but there are starchy foods that I love, that I grew up eating my whole life. I know what it feels like. I could never give up my bagels. I could never start a morning without cereal for breakfast. I could never give up ... You can. You really can.
You can.
You can. Try it. Why not try it? Try it for a month. Try it for 2 months. If it doesn't work, if you're not happy, go back to your old diet. Why not just try it? You don't have to give it up forever. Give it up for 1 month and see what happens.
That's actually the way that I start like snaking my way into people's brains. But give it a try. I mean, like, you cannot know if you haven't tried it. And people tend to say, no, but that is too hard. I don't want to feel deprived. That is too hard. Dude, your life is hard right now.
Yeah, what's hard? Not eating rice or losing a leg to diabetes? Which one of those is harder?
That is so hard. I mean, like, your life is really, really hard. It's not easy to be, I mean, like, to go shopping, not finding anything for you. And it's not easy to deprive yourself from pool parties and stuff like that because you are embarrassed of your own body. I mean, Alzheimer's is hard.
I will also say, I have a lot of empathy and understanding because there's a great deal of addiction. We are, as a population, we're all addicted to sugar. We're addicted to starch. It's delicious. We love it. I know it's hard to give it up. It's not easy, but most people who try keto are surprised at how easy it is. They think it's going to be so hard. It's going to be so hard. For the first day or two, you might still be craving. You kind of want your old favorite foods. It's very hard to believe until you experience it for yourself. Once you do this, within a few days, those cravings actually go away. And like I said, I know it's hard to believe. Es imposible creer, but it's true. Like, most people are surprised at how easy it is to not eat those foods after a few days.
And the benefits are like ridiculous. And there is also the fact that most people hear the word diet and they immediately think that they are going to feel deprived and hungry, and that they are absolutely reluctant. I'm gonna have to start eating lettuce and like super boring shit that I don't want to. And my people are gonna be eating pizza and I'm gonna be eating freaking lettuce like that. No, not even that. I mean, like, it's freaking delicious. It is decadent and delicious. And
this is not a calorie counting diet. It's not a low calorie diet. It's not a low fat diet. The only thing you really have to worry about is your carbs. Total carbs really low. Even if, like when I have clients, even if somebody's goal is weight loss, right? Because people do this way of eating for all kinds of reasons, totally unrelated to weight. If somebody is specifically doing this to lose weight, I still tell them at the beginning, eat as much as you want, as long as you keep your carbs really, really low. Get your body adjusted. Get your body accustomed to burning fat. Get it off all the carbs. And then we'll see about how much you need to be eating to help you lose weight. But this is such a nice way to eat because you don't have to keep track of anything. You're not counting calories. You don't have to weigh everything. You can if you want to, but you don't have to.
Man. That is a great approach. I remember when I first started, I started like way overboard with fat. Oh my God. And I didn't start like, I didn't start the diet to lose weight. I just have been plagued with migraines for most of my life, and they were really, really hard. And then I started the diet and I realized that I had depression. I didn't know that I was depressed, but I was. I realized when the demon sitting on my chest just decided to go. And I started like way overboard with the fat, and I still lost a lot of weight. Like in the beginning, your body doesn't even know what to do with all that fat. It's just confused. Like, what the hell is going on? Oh, that first stage is amazing.
Well, I think a lot of people do that when they're brand new to this way of eating. They eat a ton of fat because they've been restricting fat their whole life. They've been afraid of butter. They've been afraid of cheese. They've been afraid of a fatty steak or bacon. Now that you can eat that, you just eat everything. And over time, that kind of goes away.
Yeah, I mean, you have to sober up. You have to grow up. Yeah. At the beginning, I did. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. Okay. I want to be respectful of your time. I don't want to like hold you on like forever. But before we go, please tell my audience where they can find you, when they can find your books, when they can find all of the wonderful information that you share all the time with people. And I'll let you go.
Thank you. My main website is tuitnutrition.com, TUIT nutrition.com. I'm on Twitter, so my Twitter handle is also tuitnutrition. That's also what I use on Instagram, but I almost never post on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel. The name is tuitnutrition. And I have another book out. It's on my shelf over there, I think, about breaking fat loss stalls on ketogenic diets. So that's at stallslayer.com.
I already ordered it.
We'll put links, I guess, to everything if we can, but yeah, that's right. And my book, my Alzheimer's book is called The Alzheimer's Antidote. It is available in Spanish.
It is available in Spanish. It hasn't arrived yet. Can you believe it?
Oh, well, I don't know.
But it is available, and that is a great thing. It's called el Antidote contra el Alzheimer's. Entonces, eso es lo que vamos a poner en el link de la descripción.
¿Y cómo se dice book cover? ¿Es it cubierto or the cover?
La cubierta del libro.
En la cubierta del libro hay un stack de pan. Yo no tenía nada que hacer con el pan. I was not involved in the choice of the cover, so
maybe they went because Dr. David Perlmutter maybe wrote something about that. Maybe they went with that. They went with that wave of
I would not have had that huge stack of bread on the cover.
What would you have had?
I don't know. Maybe like ketogenic type food or no food at all, just some other design. It's like some kind of brain thing, but not a big
pork
snack.
knuckle or bacon or something.
Yeah. You know.
Okay, Amy, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. That is so kind of you. I will let you know when I am ready to publish, and I will link everybody to all of your resources and your Patreon account and everything there is.
Thank you. Did I send you those links already yet, or?
I got them. I'm really fast. I'm really fast.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. You are very kind. I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Send me the link when this is ready. Have a good night.